All right. Oh, that's probably gonna get cut out, so that was great. This is setting up the StarWalk telescope. This one is alike to the other ones. The other classic Dobsonians, which have this wood thing, and it's slightly alike to the UCTs, which are a little bit more complicated. But they all have these wheels. That's the first step, is take the wheels off. Righty-tighty, lefty-loosey.
It's the most important thing to remember on this job.
Yeah, really that's all you need to know. Everything else is sort of extra. All right. So the truss pulls. One end of them has this little knob thing here. The other end is just tube. So the idea here is the knob pieces of the truss pulls will connect into the secondary assembly, and the tube parts will go right down into these holes, and then you cinch down on the thumb screw and it locks them in place.
Yes, and you want to make sure that these two items, you keep track of them. So I like to put them in the gray toolbox, or just in one of the toolboxes, so that you can easily access them at the end of the night.
Yes.
You need to roll the trusses back up.
Yes, the bungee cord and the little Velcro strip are what bundle all of the truss pulls together. That's why they don't just fall apart. Cool. So, yep, we're gonna go tube side down into the socket.
You might have to twist it a little bit.
Yep, make sure it goes all the way down in there, and then righty-tighty, tighten those down. And bingo, you've got the two knob parts up at the top so they can connect with the secondary assembly. Of the telescopes we have, this is probably the simplest to assemble in terms of getting the truss pulls up. It's very quick.
Okay. Now for the secondary assembly. These blankets are what protect the wood of the secondary assembly when it's in the van. So you just want to take them and put them back in the trailer so that they don't get all dusty when you're doing your program.
Absolutely. Another important thing to remember, this secondary assembly does not fit into the actual mirror box thing, so they are stored separately in the trailer. When you're storing this thing on the ground, make sure that the knobs are facing up.
Yes.
Make sure that you don't put it down with this kind of plastic thing that receives the little knob things from the top. Make sure that those are facing up. All right, so we're gonna get the secondary assembly up onto the actual telescope. Again, you've got these kind of hemispherical sockets down here, and these round knob things will fit into those.
Yes, and as always, you want the eyepiece fixture and the tail rod fixture to be on the same side as the tracking system junk, which we don't use currently. But for the purposes of which way the telescope tilts.
That's right. So the idea is, if you see here, you'll have the eyepiece in that socket, and then you'll have the tail rod up here. When you're canting the telescope downwards towards the horizon, you want the tail rod to be above the eyepiece.
Yes.
So if you look which way the telescope will tilt down, the tail rod has to be on the opposite side of the eyepiece from that.
Yes. Okay. So this is the tricky part.
Yes, this is the circus act. Okay, these ones are in. Those two are in. Those two are in.
Okay.
And those two are in. It can sometimes be a bit of a kind of wild goose chase, aligning them all, and then one of them comes unaligned and you have to go back and do it. Not that big of a deal though. Tighten those down, hand tight. Okay, excellent.
Cool.
Now everything's locked up and the telescope can cant on the mirror box. We're going to take the secondary mirror housing off if you were observing. I think we're going to leave it on for these purposes. And up next, we're going to do the light shroud.
Yes, and this light shroud has a little label, Astro Systems, and this goes on the bottom. So I don't know. So Astro Systems, I'm putting it on like this.
Like when the telescope's upright, you should be able to read the Astro Systems logo. And this is way, way easier with two people. Most of the time, you'll probably just be doing it as one person. It's doable, or you can enlist the help of a guest. You know, some volunteer from the audience type stuff. It'll get bunched up around the bolts and around the eyepiece socket, so just make sure that you're going around in circles, clearing all the snags.
Yeah, these are delicate.
And occasionally on windier nights, the telescope will sort of just become a sailboat with the light shroud on, so we ought to not use it if the wind is really whipping out there on the flats.
You can see now.
Ta-da.
And now that the light shield's on,
As above, so below.
the rocker box and the mirror are sufficiently protected. Take off the mirror cover. There's the mirror. You never want to set the mirror cover on the ground. You want to set it back in the trailer or somewhere where it's not going to get dusty.
Yes, this is a big deal, and something that you typically don't anticipate is in the summertime. Out on the flats, a lot of our stargazing locations are very dusty, so anything that you leave out, there's a good chance that it will be covered in sandy dust. So
And it'll track the dust right back into the trailer, and it'll get bounced around, and it'll go right on the mirror.
Yep, so make sure stuff is clear of dust and in the spot where it will not accumulate dust in the first place. All right, we're gonna begin taking down the StarWalk. So first things first, I think we're gonna grab the mirror cover out of the van where it is safe from dust. We're going to cover the mirror. You don't want it exposed to the elements any longer than you are observing for, so we just want to cover that right back up. So when you are replacing the mirror cover on the StarWalk, here, take that off just for a second, let me show.
Yeah,
so you have these little marks here. There's a Sharpie mark right there and a Sharpie mark right there. They correspond to these magnets on the side. There are magnets underneath the mirror cover. Those are going to align so the mirror cover doesn't spin off as you're going down the road. There you go. So you see that you've got Sharpie marks on the mirror cover. They're just going to be roughly aligned enough for the magnetism to, kick in there. Perfect. For the magnetism to kick in. Yeah, so secondary mirror cover is back on. It's just like a little bag that goes over the secondary mirror. That little blue one right there, perfect. And the light shroud is going to come off.
And I like to start on this side where all the doodads where it might get caught on are. And just flip it up over that first, so I don't have to worry about that. And then I make my way around, making sure it's being brought gently over all of the screws, because I don't want these to tear. And this goes back into
The gray utility box. Visitor. Hey there.
Hey, buddy. You want to tilt it all the way back up now that the rear cover is off? Now that we're ready to take down the secondary assembly, you want to make sure it's like as upright as it can be. It'll stop moving.
Yes.
And then I personally like to start from the opposite side of the ladder when I'm going to be carrying it off. That way I can just bend over there. And you want to unscrew these quite a bit because you don't want to end up trying to lift it off with the screws still being too tight.
Yeah.
Because then you'll just get caught. You won't be able to lift it all the way off.
Yeah, make sure the tension on the screws is like all the way loosened.
Yeah, and this is a little bit of a tricky game as well, just because you don't want the screws to fall out. Well, we can see more about that in a second. So yeah, so now I end up here, unscrewing these last ones. And then you can just lift it off.
Perfect.
And then once again, you want to flip it over wherever you set it. You want to flip it over so that these are on top.
Knobs up, ladies and gents.
And then,
Perfect.
truss time.
Yep. And the StarWalk trusses are real simple. Loosen the tension on these thumb screws here. These ones here that we tightened to get it in. And then the tubes just come right out. You can lay them across the top of the mirror box in a little stack, and then we will tighten them all back down into a pile with the bungee cord and the Velcro loop. All right, so you've got your bungee cord that's gonna go underneath and simply hook around. Perfect. And then you've got just a Velcro loop with a little buckle on the other end. The hook part of the Velcro goes through the buckle and then down onto the loop. Perfect. Now that is a nice little package that just fits right into the trailer.
Yep, and then the last things last before we pack up the trailer is putting the wheels back on.
Yes, putting the wheels back on.
And on StarWalk, there is a handy dandy little note that says wheel on the side that the wheel is on. But
Wheel.
as a rule, the wheel is on the side of I don't know what to call these, rockers?
Yeah, the
Well,
rocker.
the rockers, where the rockers come up over the box, that's the side that the wheel goes on.
Yep. So the way that it would tilt down, that's the side that's going to be going forward when you're rolling it like the wheelbarrow. While Frank's doing that, the ladder here, it can take a little bit of kind of finesse to break it down. So these two tabs here on the side of the top bar, these tabs need to be squeezed inward, both at once, and then this top bar will come back down, it'll fold first, and then that unlocks the stairs to be able to fold as well. So we'll demonstrate that. Right, wheels are back on tight.
Okay. And now we're ready to pack up the trailer.